Well, people, you've seen my top 5 video games I used to love and now I don't. Now it's time for the polar opposite. This is now the top 5 video games I used to despise so much as a kid, and now I seem to enjoy them a lot more as a teenager than I did as a kid. So you know the drill, let's kick off with number 5. Standing at number 5. Now, just because I don't hate something anymore does not mean that I love it now, and Shadow the Hedgehog is a prime example of that. This was a game that was meant to finally finish off Shadow's backstory and was released after Sonic Heroes. Whilst I do like this game a tad better than Sonic Heroes, it didn't quite cut the cake for me. But is it really as bad as I thought it was? To be honest, not at all. What's innovative about this game is that you have the option to be on the good side, the bad side, or do things alone. I will say that some of the weapons in the game are pretty creative, but others are either completely uninspiring or forgettable. The level designs are a little bland but do fit well in the tone of the game, and the music, whilst I wasn't a fan of the level themes, the vocal themes kicked major ass. However, the controls still feel slippery as they were in Sonic Heroes. Some of the level designs are poorly laid out, the lack of aiming system, and that the story was too hard to keep track on due to the 10 endings needed to complete the game. Back when I was a kid, I was so mad at this game because of these things, I just couldn't be bothered to finish the game and switched it off without question. A few years later, I decided to pick it up and play through it again, and I did enjoy it more than I did as a kid, and I will admit that the game doesn't deserve the hate that it got when it was released. But I still have mixed feelings with the game, and I always preferred Ratchet and Clank in terms of shooting/platform games, which is why I put it at number 5 on this list. Standing at number 4. Tomb Raider 2. Now, some of you may know that I already talked about this game in my first ever video game battle, but one thing that you didn't know is that this was my most hated Tomb Raider game in the original trilogy. Main reasons was due to the game's storyline. Many of you may know that I heavily criticised the story in my battle review for being mediocre and less interesting than the one in the first game. As much as I still dislike the story today, I bought Tomb Raider 2 again 2 years ago, played it for a few hours, and enjoyed it a lot more despite the story. One thing I liked about the game is that it's more action-packed than the first one, as it involves you shooting mobsters, thugs and assassins. I also like the level designs of the game, especially the Venice level and the Opera House level, which was really scary to go through. That, and it does have a more improved save feature which allows you to save anywhere you want, and the controls feel more smooth and less stiff. Although one thing I still have a dislike towards Tomb Raider 2 is that some of the level designs are just tedious, which could take you a lot of time to get through. But apart from that, I did misjudge this game back in the day, and even though it's not my favourite Tomb Raider game, it's 100 times better than the crap Crystal Dynamics has been shoving in the series lately.
Don't you think you've seen enough?
Oh yeah, best video game ending ever. Standing at number 3. Blink's the Time Sweeper. Ah yes, a quite forgotten 3D platformer that was meant to compete against Nintendo's Mario for Microsoft, but due to lackluster reception and sales, it wasn't enough to have that platforming competitiveness. I really despised this game when I played it at an old friend's house on his Xbox, due to the concept of playing, rewinding, fast forwarding, pausing and slowing down time like a VCR. I found it too gimmicky for a 3D platformer, but a few years later I got a chance to play it again, and now I find the time feature to be more innovative than gimmicky. The graphics are definitely stunning for early Xbox standards, and the techno music really what made this game nostalgic for me. Having the ability to suck up garbage and enemies is what made it more of a challenge. I wish I could play this game once again, but sadly I don't have an Xbox, which really does suck big time. And whilst I can agree with the reviews it got back in the day, this game really could have had the chance to live up to the video game mascot reputation along with Mario and Sonic if the execution of the game was a little more tweaked in some areas. But other than that, I find this a decent Xbox platformer. I haven't played the sequel yet, but I heard that it's worse than the original. Standing at number 2. Disney's Tarzan. Yes, you all know I recently reviewed this game, and now it's time for me to explain why I used to dislike it. For one thing, the difficulty. When I was a kid, I was so mad at the Elephant Stampede level because I kept screwing up 1,000 times. Same can be said for the Baboon Chase. I also didn't like some of the parts of the levels like the tree branch grinding, where your reaction time has to be spot on to get past these parts. But getting this game again last year off the PlayStation Store, I must say I punched myself for not liking this game back in the day. Sure, as I said in my review, it's nothing original or groundbreaking because it's a movie-based game, but it's still become one of my favourite movie tie-in games because it lived up to its movie counterpart very well, and I like it more than other Disney tie-in games like Hercules and A Bug's Life. If you want more info on this game, see my review on it. So Disney's Tarzan is the second video game I used to hate. And finally, standing at number 1 is Ratchet Deadlocked. Definitely the most hated game in the Ratchet and Clank series. This was a game I seriously, and I mean I seriously misjudged too much back as a kid. This was the only spin-off in the series made by Insomniac Games, where the gameplay is just like the first 3 games, except Clank is not with you, and is replaced by 2 combat bots, Mark and Green, who assist Ratchet during his adventure, where Ratchet can give them a set of commands like turning bolts, setting bombs, activate switches, and much more. The only downfall I have with these bots is that you have to constantly revive them every time they blow up, which is frustrating when you need them to perform a certain action. The gameplay takes the concept of the gladiator battles from the sequels, which means there are a crap load of missions to do which are very addicting and non-repetitive. There are a lot more enemies and obstacles to blow up, which means upgrading your weapons in this game is twice as faster, and you can level your weapons up to level 100. That's right, level 100! There are only 10 weapons in this game, but most of them are very powerful and very fun to use. The objective of the game is to reach to being the #1 gladiator of all time. The only negative I have with this game is that out of all the funny Ratchet and Clank games, this one is the most unfunniest. The comedy in the game is provided by these obnoxious sports commentators who constantly repeat the same jokes over and over again, and it's just not funny whatsoever. But other than that, I seriously was being stupid with this game back in the day to the point that I hated it. But now, I love it! So there you have it. Ratchet Deadlocked is the #1 video game I used to hate as a kid, and now I don't anymore. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment below, and I'll see you all in the next video.